UCLA is the number 1 overall seed. 30 wins on the season, check. Done that. 2 losses on the season. Big Ten championship, check. Top talent like Lauren Betts, who just dominates every single time she's on the court, check. And you got some pretty fantastic defense as well, check. This team looks really, really good. They have a really good shot of making the Final Four. But as we all know, March does not care about regular season success. And ultimately, we will see if UCLA can live up to the hype because they are the number 1 overall seed and they have the easiest of the number 1 seeds in terms of getting to the Final Four and going from there and making some more noise. And there are some teams that are not very happy about the decision to have UCLA as the number 1 overall seed. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. South Carolina. We go to Dawn Staley.
My reaction? I mean, I'm not in the room. But obviously, I think we did much more than probably any other overall number 1 seed. We outdid ourselves even from last year with the amount of quality wins that we had. But I guess the committee was looking at something else.
What thoughts on the draw and the possible matchups?
Whether we were the number 1 overall seed or not, the draw is the draw. I mean, we're going to play each game like it's our last, and hopefully that leads us to a place hopefully everybody in this room wants us to be.
So clearly, Dawn Staley is not happy about the decision from the committee to have South Carolina as, yes, a number 1 seed, but not the number 1 overall seed, and she's not happy about it. Yes, this team has won 30 games this season. They've had a very tough schedule. As we know, South Carolina likes to make some hard schedules, and they made that, right? They lost 3 games this year. One of those losses was to UCLA. They had another loss to Texas, and they lost against UConn. Now, this is one of those things where Dawn is like, you know what? We don't have a chip on our shoulder. I believe she said it in the ESPN interview. Like, she's like, we don't have a chip on our shoulder. Like, yes, I don't like this, but like, it is what it is. And she also ended up talking about the strength of schedule and how it may seem that South Carolina may be doing something different next season.
Going to play it. Obviously it's disappointing. It really is. I'd like to get some feedback on how they came to that conclusion because we manufactured a schedule that, if done right, it should produce an overall number 1 seed. But I will say this: we're going to make adjustments to our schedule in the future if the standard is the standard. If that's the standard, then we can play any schedule and get a number 1 seed.
Now, to me, I think this is a huge L, ultimately, for the game of women's basketball. Here's the deal. We all know that some teams schedule some easier games in non-conference play. South Carolina tends to play tougher competition when it comes to non-conference play because they got a gauntlet in the SEC. And going forward, Dawn is going to reevaluate her strategy in terms of playing tough teams. We may not see a ton of games that are like really tough for South Carolina, right? We're going to see South Carolina doing a little bit more of what LSU does when it comes to like scheduling easier teams that just like you're going to beat and it's not a big deal. We're going to see that, right? We're probably not going to see as many games against a UConn, against a Duke, against an NC State in non-conference play because why? Clearly Dawn is frustrated about this situation, and it is what it is. It is what it is. Like the committee decides what they want to decide. However, I do think strength of schedule matters, especially in non-conference. And we're going to get to, and to me, this is not even an egregious thing. Like, whatever, South Carolina is not the overall seed. Yes, sure, they're slightly upset about it, but, it is what it is. To me, the more egregious strength of schedule mishap, error for the committee actually comes later. But I wanted to start with people are just upset. People are upset with the way that the committee has been doing stuff. And we're going to go down the line. Around what this means. Because it's not just South Carolina that's upset. South Carolina is not the only team upset. We also have USC that is upset as well. Here's what Lindsey Gottlieb had to say.
I never thought I'd be a 1 seed and feel disrespected, but I thought the committee, I thought there would be very little chance we would be the number 4 overall number 1. And so, we've got a big game here on Saturday against UNCG, and we'll handle it accordingly. But you tell me if you think that bracket that we got should have been the one that it was. I can't speak for the players. I think they're excited to play, but this was not on my bingo card to be a little bit, frustrated after being a 1 seed, and it's not, an arrogance of any kind. I think there's a lot of really good teams, and you got to play the first game in front of you and earn your way from there, and that's what we'll do. But sometimes I don't understand people who make decisions in women's basketball and why they do what they do, and certainly with this committee, I would love to ask some questions.
So Dawn Staley's not too happy about the way the committee did whatever they did. And Lindsey Gottlieb is not too happy. In both ways, these two teams played, a non-conference game that really bit them both in the behind, right? South Carolina lost by close to 30 points against UConn at home in a non-conference game. That ultimately was the nail in the coffin that cost them from being the number 1 overall seed. How bad they lost to UConn at home. And then, on the other end, we have USC, who lost to Iowa. Yes, USC was not at home. They was at Iowa. Yes, this was the day that Caitlin's jersey was retired. And yes, there was a lot of, Iowa was on one in that game. But that was a terrible loss for USC. That loss to Iowa from USC is what got USC the fourth number 1 pick, right? And so, yes, Lindsey's mad about it or upset about it, right? I understand that. But sometimes when you schedule these non-conference games, in the back of your mind, you can get got. You absolutely can get got, and we see the results of it. South Carolina lost to UConn in terrible fashion. USC lost to Iowa, not in terrible fashion, but a huge surprise. And then we see what we see. Both, yes, number 1 seed, but they don't like where they're placed because USC has to now go through UConn to get to the Final Four, which is going to be wild. That's why Lindsey Gottlieb is mad. That's why she's mad. It's because who they have to go through now to ultimately get to where they need to go to. All right, and now, not the only ones who are mad. There is also some other people who are not very happy about the situation, okay? Okay, let's talk to Coach Yo.
Well, I guess I'll address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm shocked with the strength of schedule of a 3 and a net of a 12, and in the last month, beating the number 8 and number 7 ranked team in the country, you would think that we would have a chance to host.
So, yeah, I actually really did think that that we would see Ole Miss host. They are not hosting. They are a number 5 seed, I believe, instead of a number 4 seed. So they're not hosting. They're not happy about it. And again, it is what it is, right? The Rebels have had a pretty good season, right? A really good season. They were 6th in the SEC. They went 20 of 10 on the season. And yeah, they had some significant losses, right? They lost to USC. They lost to UConn. Remember, these are 2 really, really good squads. They lost to NC State. Yes, also really good squad that is hosting. They lost to Texas A&M, which was a bad loss. I think that was a huge loss for them. The Bama loss was not that bad of a loss at all. Oklahoma, not a bad loss. Tennessee, not a bad loss. South Carolina, not a bad loss. Texas, not a bad loss. I think the reason why is because they had the bad loss against Texas A&M. Now, truly, I do believe that the Rebels are a good squad that in my bracket, I mean, in my, when I was mocking up who I thought was going to end up hosting and whatnot. I had Ole Miss as a host team. I did, because I thought that they had some really good games and they should have hosted. Because you look at the teams they lost against, it wasn't like 20-10 is not the same for Ole Miss than it is for a team in the MAC conference or the Big East conference, right? Like, it's not the same, because if you look at the teams that Ole Miss lost to, they're number 1 seeds, they're number 2 seeds, they're number 3 seeds. Okay, like it's wild. It's wild. But it is what it is. I mean, hey, everybody is not going to be happy. It is what it is. Now, do I think all of these coaches have, a complaint? Sure, but it's March Madness, man. You're not gonna make 68 teams happy. You're just not. Yes, they're happy to make the dance, but they're unhappy about where they were placed. And, as I say, it is what it is. But to me, the team that has the biggest room to be upset is a team that did not even make the conference, did not even make the tournament. And I am talking about James Madison. It's gotten to the point where even the competition against JMU is saying, like, man, they should have been a team that ended up making the tournament. Here's what Ball State's head coach had to say about JMU.
I think about James Madison, right, who we played. That's an NCAA team, and they're on the bubble, and everybody, what? And meanwhile, I got an 8-8 AC, SC, whatever team, and their kids don't even want to play anymore. They've been average all year, right? None of those teams would go play James Madison at James Madison. But then they'll walk around and talk about they should be in the tournament because they're in some league. Come on, man. We got to change the narrative. Or how about we make all those teams come play Ball State at Ball State, or go play James Madison at James Madison. My phone number's out there. Call me. I'm in. But it doesn't happen, and because why would they? They can go beat the bottom of their league. They can go 500 and call themselves a success. Meanwhile, teams like James Madison and Toledo win 25, 26, 27 games, and everybody's like, oh, pat you on the back, and what?
I mean, he's right, though. While Power 5 teams, and I covered those, and I wanted to structure this stream specifically like this to get to this point. Power 5 teams, sure, they feel like they can have a gripe, right? Sure. You're a number 1 seed, but you're upset that you're not the number 1 overall seed. Or you're a number 1 seed, but you're upset that you're the 4th of the number 1 seeds. And it's like you're upset about that. Or you're a team that made the NCAA tournament, but you're upset that you're not hosting. And yes, you've had some good games. Yes, the losses you've had were not that bad of losses besides one, and I understand that. I understand what's going on that front. And sure, you may have a gripe. But to me, the teams that have the biggest gripes are mid-majors. These Power 5s, they can be upset. They can be upset about where they placed. Absolutely. Sure. Whatever. Be upset. Have a chip on your shoulder, even though Dawn Staley said that she did not have, that they're not having a chip on their shoulder and whatnot, and I get that. But there are some Power 5 teams that are really upset. But what I want to do, I want y'all to put yourselves in the place of some of these mid-majors who did everything they possibly could. They scheduled the hardest non-conference schedule they possibly could. They did. They did everything they could, but ultimately they end up with in a conference that is not that great. And regardless of what they did in non-conference, regardless of the strength of schedule, they do not make the NCAA tournament. And those are the people who have the biggest gripe, not the Power 5s that's upset about their little seedings. That's not that important. The thing to me that is the biggest importance are the teams that did not make it, that were right there. They were really good, but did not make it. Let's continue on talking about James Madison, and let's hear from their head coach.
None of these teams, so like Indiana, Nebraska, Oregon, Washington, Princeton, Harvard, Virginia Tech, UNLV, St. Joe's, none of them are getting votes in the AP poll or the coaches poll. None of them. Okay, we have 13 in the AP poll and 7 in the coaches poll. Like, explain that to me. So the nation or the voters, right, respect what we have and what we're doing and the 20 games we won in a row, right? But we're technically behind Washington, who finished 12th in the Big Ten. And again, I got a good friend on Washington, David Atkins, really good guy. His daughter just graduated from here. But that's your choice, right? You're sitting here as a committee, and that's your choice. And they got great wins. They got way more quad one wins than we do. Way more. And finished really good. Finished 5 out of 6. So I'm not even picking at them. But, like, that's what your choice is. 12th best team in the Big Ten, or a very, very dominant mid-major that had a bad 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever you want to say are bad, maybe 1 minute. I don't know. Right, and I think that says something for, right, part of these selection, observable component. Like, people are voting for us.
So that is what James Madison's head coach was saying. And for those who don't know about JMU, they have tried their best to schedule some tough games. And they have. And it just so happens that they lost in some of those games. This is a team that James Madison went 28-5 on the season. They had a stretch where they won 20 straight games in a row. They finished first in the Sun Belt. Unfortunately for them, they had a terrible ending to the Sun Belt Conference Tournament Championship, where they ended up losing. They ended up losing to Arkansas State. So that's why we see Arkansas State in the NCAA tournament, and we don't see JMU, because JMU, they had a really good game, but it went to overtime and they kind of fell apart from there. So ultimately, that loss in the championship game for JMU cost them an appearance in the NCAA tournament. Now let's go through their record. Again, 20 straight wins in the Sun Belt. They finished first in their conference. So a really good squad. But they've had some losses, right? And in the losses that they had, they've been against top talent, right? This is a team that played Notre Dame, right? They played Notre Dame in South Bend, got killed. They played Northern Arizona in a game that, like, yeah, they shouldn't have lost against Northern Arizona. I'm just saying. They shouldn't have lost. Right? They lost against Texas. They played Texas, and they lost in that game. Pretty substantial. They played NC State at NC State and lost. This is a team that was not afraid to schedule tough games. And so we talk about big games. They scheduled them, right? Texas, NC State, Notre Dame. They lost those games. And they weren't even that close of games. The problem was JMU was unable to schedule some of those weaker Power 5 teams, right? Now, I would have loved to see a JMU versus a, Ole Miss, a Iowa, right? There's some games that I feel like if JMU would have scheduled those as well, not just like the top of the top, not just the top 5 teams, but if they were able to schedule some of the other games against maybe a Princeton or a Harvard or something like that, maybe that could have gotten them into the NCAA tournament. They're a really good squad that killed in conference play. Got killed when they played the top 5 teams in the country. Absolutely. But I do think if they would have just been able to schedule some other games against some of the lesser Power 5 teams, maybe they would have had a chance. But just because JMU wants to schedule a game does not mean that other teams that are in that lower tier Power 5 program, it doesn't mean that they actually schedule those games, right? We talk about strength of schedule. Strength of schedule only matters if teams want to play you, right? If JMU is calling people and saying, hey, you want to play? And these teams are on the bubble, they're like, we think we can make the NCAA tournament, but if we play you, we may lose and we may get out of the NCAA tournament. Like, maybe they don't play them. And so, like, I think that's one of the hard things about it. And let's continue on with JMU with their strength of schedule.
Our non-conference strength of schedule is 26th in the country, and of all the bubble teams, it's hands down the best strength of schedule of all the bubble teams. Does it? Not even close. Not even close. And I can go through it. You go non-conference strength of schedule. Georgia Tech 163, right? Indiana 52, Nebraska 170, Oregon 92, Iowa 82, Washington 202, Princeton 120, Harvard 201, right? Virginia Tech 151, St. Joe's 200. So all right. So we have built this tough non-conference schedule. Okay, 26th in the country, non-conference strength of schedule. And we have 3 NCAA tournament teams in that schedule. We only had 3 opportunities, right? NC State, Notre Dame, and Texas. Villanova is not an NCAA tournament team this year, right? VCU is not an NCAA tournament team this year. Florida, not an NCAA tournament team this year. Northern Arizona, all good teams, but not NCAA tournament teams. So you're penalizing us for making a really challenging schedule. Okay, a really challenging schedule, but you only end up having 3 opportunities, and we're just 0 for 3 against them. Now, Ball State could be the 4th if they end up making the field, and that would be one NCAA tournament team that we beat. And I think that's important to know, right? Like, you're asking us to schedule and create opportunities, but you can't control other people. We can only control what we have. And so I thought we took advantage of most of our opportunities, and losing the 2 games we did in overtime, in single digits, one in the championship and one on a neutral floor, I don't think those are huge bad losses, right? That's one of the things. It's like competitive in losses. Yeah, I think that's competitive in your losses. But
yeah, that is the thing. JMU is not the only team that felt like they were snubbed. We also have Seton Hall as well, who felt like they were snubbed as well. I didn't pull any clips because I ran out of time. So that was all the clips I have. But Seton Hall is another team that was like right on the bubble, right? They finished 3rd in the Big East. They're a really good squad. They got some quality wins. Like the teams that they've lost against were good teams, right? They lost against Princeton. They lost against USC, right? They lost against LSU. They lost against Creighton. They lost against UConn. Like these are not bad, terrible losses for Seton Hall, but they don't make it because sometimes the conference that you are in matters. Yes, JMU scheduled a tougher non-conference schedule than Iowa. But at the end of the day, JMU is in the Sun Belt. Iowa's in the Big Ten. So Iowa doesn't need to schedule as tough of non-conference games as a JMU because in conference, they're playing NCAA capable teams in the conference. Because again, guys, let's remember, guys, let's remember that the Big Ten had 12 teams in the NCAA conference. I mean, in the NCAA tournament, right? The Big East only had 2. And unfortunately for Seton Hall, they were not one of those 2. For James Madison, there was only 1 team from the Sun Belt that made it to the NCAA tournament, and that was a team that won the Sun Belt championship, tournament championship. And unfortunately for James Madison, they had a bad couple of minutes and lost in the championship game to Arkansas State. So Arkansas State moves on. James Madison is not happy, but all is not lost for James Madison because they are participating in the WBIT. Okay, they're participating in WBIT and they are the number 1 seed there. So they're gonna hopefully win the WBIT and just prove to everybody that we're all about that. I know y'all don't want to give us no respect and blah 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 blah. It is what it is. It is what it is. If y'all could, please make sure to hit that like button. That really does help the channel out a whole lot. Are y'all enjoying these kind of breakdowns? Every day, we're doing a different topic every single day. As we are in the NCAA tournament time, we're going to be talking about the tournament every single day. I'm going to be giving y'all some clips, some bite-sized pieces about various things that y'all need to know. We're going to walk through some stuff. We're going to slow walk this thing as we get through the tournament. It's going to be an awesome